subcontracted. Oh, okay. That's noted that it is recording. Thanks.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
A lot of the small businesses subcontract their work with either a research institution to capitalize on some of the subject matter expertise, or to a large business to maybe capitalize on some of the resources or testbed platforms that they might have. So it is not a requirement for a small business to team up or subcontract the work. It's just something that's available as an option should you apply. Now, the difference between SBIR and STTR really comes down to a required agreement or required teaming. SBIR, the small business has the full discretion if they want to subcontract or not. But for STTR, there is a requirement for the small business to subcontract the work with a research institution like university. So that's really the only big fundamental difference. Aside from that, it's the same amount of funding, at least for the Navy side, the same schedule, the same sort of announcements. We put STTR topics alongside SBIR. So that's pretty much the only specific thing. With respect to how much of the work can be outsourced, so the research institution has to do at least 30% of the work, small business at least 40% of the work. Both the SBIR and STTR programs are competitive three-phase programs. I'll talk about those three phases a little bit later, but I want to emphasize the word competitive. We do get quite a lot of questions about how the government can participate with small businesses with respect to this program. And one of the things that I would kind of always keep in mind is that these programs are meant to have an even playing field for every small business. So we don't, as government personnel, we don't show any favoritism or align ourselves or team with specific small businesses in the interest of fairness due to the program. So do kind of keep that little notion in mind, especially when we talk about some of the strategies or some of the questions that you might have. This slide basically summarizes who's eligible to participate in the program. Essentially, as a small business, you have to be a for-profit, owned and operated in the United States, and have less than 500 employees. All the work that you do under SBIR or STTR, even though you might have some satellite offices that might be outside of the country, that's totally fine as long as the work has to be performed in the United States. And one of the big questions we always get asked is, I have a product that's already been developed. I didn't participate in SBIR or STTR. Can I join into the program if I have a product already made? And the true sort of the white simple answer to that is no. The goal of SBIR and STTR is to really foster research and development. We're trying to create something new. It's not really a procurement program. So you can't use SBIR and STTR to buy something off the shelf. That's kind of essentially it to keep that in mind. I'm on slide 5. Hopefully everyone can see at the bottom right. This basically shows why you as a small business and why we as a government like to participate in this program. On the government side, I kind of think of this program as like a savings account, and we'll talk about a little bit of funding, but it's an allocation of funding that we as the command have to help foster innovative research and development. A lot of what we do is acquisition. We do a lot of like near-term solutions to help address fleet needs. SBIR and STTR tackles more of the mid and long-term solutions for us. So it allows us at the government to think ahead of some innovative solutions that could help us 5 to 10 years down the line. One of the things too that you'll see when we talk about the phases of the program is that SBIR and STTR provides competing approaches. We usually award multiple awards per topic, and that's to give the government an idea or a variety of solutions to kind of see and address their problem at hand. And one of the good things that if you've participated in the program before, you probably already know this, and this is the last bullet here, is that any follow-on awards are sole source, meaning that if you've participated in the program once, any successive follow-on awards can be made without any further competition. And that's a very good tactic on the government side, because of course, getting a contract without going through these has to be in a very competitive, it's a really intense to actually achieve a sole source award. But because you as a small business have participated in the competitive nature of the program, any follow-on awards, once you've achieved SBIR and STTR awards, can be made sole source without any further competition. On a small business side, some of the incentives there is that it builds credibility for your company's research. So it's one of those things where the goal of this program is to really help foster and grow your company. So a lot of companies that we see that are veterans of the program really have a comprehensive portfolio of SBIR and STTRs for that. Another thing that I'll talk about later towards the end of this briefing is that as a small business, you do retain certain intellectual data rights. And I think that's very important for you to hold that and to help grow your company as well. And then just like on the government side, it's easy for us when there's a sole source option rather than going through the steps and hoops to create that. On a small business side, you always love to have an ability for you to not further compete. So we'll talk a little bit about what follow-on awards really mean, but essentially just kind of keep in mind that it allows an option for you to kind of go sole source once you've participated in the program. We are just one small service, underneath DoD. So beyond DoD, this shows all the different federal agencies that participate in this program. Each agency does something completely different. One of my goals this fiscal year, just as a program manager for the command, is to get in touch with the different agencies and see how they work with their programs. And one of the things that Cindy, I think you mentioned grants, so I'm going to bring up grants as like a lot of agencies kind of typically go the grant process when it comes to SBIR awards and have a very different flavor for how they use this program. So I think just kind of keep in mind, like DoD is very strict about how we use the program. We use contract vehicles. We expect something in return. Other agencies like Department of Agriculture or National Science Foundation do a grant approach where there's not really a necessity to get something in return. So everything does something a little bit different. I think at the end of the day, I would just kind of take away that there are so many options for you as a small business and so many different opportunities to participate in this program, not just within Navy, within DoD. Those that are indicated, or the boxes that are here, I had too much fun with colors. On the bottom right, the little circles show the agencies that do participate in the STTR program. So it does come into the amount of extramural R&D funding that we have that shows which agency is eligible to also participate in STTR. Okay, so underneath DoD is Department of Navy, and just to show you that I'm just one of the different commands underneath Navy that participates in SBIR and STTR, this is the slide that shows it to you. So all the entities that you see at the very bottom here are every entity that has an SBIR budget, has their own specific alignment of what they're looking for in specific topics and focus areas. And we pretty much operate on the same level in terms of scheduling and how we operate the program ourselves. I'm very fortunate to know my counterparts in these various commands. That being said, if you have an interest in a different command that's listed here that's not NAVWAR, I can always help you to kind of introduce you to my counterpart that's there as well. Each one of us, of course, focuses on different, like for us at NAVWAR, we focus on the cyber domain, which probably is not exactly, might not be in your swim lane or what you're looking for, but if there's a different one, you're more than welcome to send me an email and I can introduce you to those counterparts. Alternatively, I've included a link at the very bottom here, should you like to see the points of contacts for all the different commands program managers. And that's that for this slide. Okay. Get asked whenever I do roadshows to some of our leadership. One of the things that I have to correct admirals or captains, I think they think that SBIR and STTR are other people's funding, or they call it OPM, right? But in truth, it's not. SBIR and STTR is really a tax on our command's own dollars. That's essentially kind of the way of thinking about it. We are mandated if an actual acquisition program exceeds $100 million over the FIDUP, we are specifically, it's noted to have a tax of about 3.2%. And I apologize, I think it's actually 3.8%. It slowly increases with every year. But essentially, we do have a percentage of tax, and that allocation is collected and then reserved for us at NAVWAR to use specifically for this program. So think of it, I like to think of it as like a savings account, right? You save it for a specific purpose. We do have a small percentage of that specific tax that supports the administration of the program. Every one of the commands has that. So that specific administration goes to, like, for example, to support my labor as a program manager. So that's important for me as a program manager to help grow the program so that it helps fund my labor as well. Okay, so to start, all of our SBIR, SETR awards really comes down and it traces back to what we call a announcement or a topic. We formally call these broad agency announcements. And each broad agency announcement, which is posted 3 times a year for the DoD, contains a series of topics. And so Navy is just one part, of course, of DoD. And so if you ever take a look at the DoD broad agency announcement, it's well over 200 pages, I think, with every cycle, because you're getting topics not just from Navy, but from Air Force, Army, and so on and so forth under that department. But every one of these announcements carries what we are looking for in the Navy, and specifically what NAVWAR is looking for, because NAVWAR is part of Navy. Again, we post this 3 times a year. You can go to the link on the second bullet here. Typically, we do have these announcements in April, August, November. I would say the website does have an ability for you to subscribe to like a mailing list so that you can always get the latest and updates should you want to participate in a timely fashion. And then any of the active announcements that we have going on right now is also on the third link that's right here. Anytime that you do participate and submit a proposal in response to one of our topics, we have a set deadline for when A, you would be expected to hear from us, whether or not you'd be selected for an award. And then B, we also have a deadline for when we're going to make the award should you be selected. So if you've submitted a proposal to one of our topics, expect that within 90 days, once the actual announcement closes, you will hear from us. And if you are selected for an award, you would get it no later than 180 days from the close date of the announcement. Slide 10, I will really emphasize, this is a very, very important slide because it tells you of the 3 important dates that come with every single one of our announcements. The biggest advice that I can give to every small business that is interested in our topics is to A, understand our dates, the actual pre-release open and close dates, but then B, capitalize on this first 30-day period that I've shown here on this slide. Whenever a topic is posted in one of our announcements and the announcements is posted publicly, it sets the clock for 30 days. And the first 30 days is really reserved for you as a small business to contact one of our topic authors to get any additional technical clarification or guidance. I love to emphasize that this period can help a small business determine A, if they should submit a proposal, because it is an investment of your time. And then get any additional information that you want with respect to what the topic is. We try to be as detailed as possible about where, how the topics are expressing our need, what's the program of record or the acquisition program that's really interested in that specific need. So as much information that you can get during the first 30-day period, I highly recommend that. And the mediums can be by phone or by email. Just do keep that in mind. We don't do any in-person visits just in the interest of this competitive nature, because it wouldn't be fair for somebody else that's not locally to have that opportunity. Once the pre-release period or the first 30 days has elapsed, then it comes to an open period. And that's a 30-day period where you as a small business can submit your proposal in response to the topics. You can ask questions during that time. However, any questions that are posed during that period is posted publicly, and all of our answers are posted publicly. So if you notice, during the pre-release period, you have an opportunity to have an intimate conversation with one of our topic authors, versus on the open period, you probably want to shy away from that if you are revealing probably what your solution might be for fear of any proprietary information leakage. So that's one of the biggest tips I can give every small business is whenever you see a topic that's of interest to us or of interest to you, capitalize during the first 30-day period to contact one of our topic authors. Okay, once our topics have been posted, you've submitted a proposal, and the announcement has closed, we go through a very intense evaluation period. We understand that when you do submit a proposal, it is an investment of your time. I think I was at an outreach event and some individual had expressed to me that on a labor cost, an estimated proposal took him about $10,000 to $15,000 worth of labor to craft something for SBIR and STTR, which is a really interesting fact for me. But we realized too that is a very heavy investment of your small business's time. So we go through an in-depth evaluation period and provide comments on why you were selected or not selected for an award. And I would kind of, the 90-day period can take like forever. I've seen companies get a little impatient about where selection's at, but I would say for NAVWAR specifically, I make it a purpose to get as much detailed information to a company's proposal as we can when you respond to one of ours. So after the 90-day period has elapsed, we then go to a period where those that are selected go through this first phase award called phase one. A phase one award is essentially a part of the program where, as a small business, you're developing what we call a feasibility study. Think of it as like a teaser to like the movie, which is you developing a full-fledged product. We typically award multiple phase ones to different small businesses for every topic. And that's to give the government a survey of different solutions. What's expected of you as a small business, if you do get a phase one award, if you can tell by the amount of funding, it's mainly a study that shows us as the government how feasible your solution is. So we're talking about mainly just a report, nothing full-fledged like a software implementation or a hardware development. This first phase is really giving us an idea or a design document, if you will, on what's to come. We then take all of those phase one awards, and it goes through a 6 to 12 month process, depending on what the actual award states. But all of those that have been awarded, which typically are 2 to 4 phase one awards that we make, they then get down selected by the same evaluation team to phase two. So out of 2 to 4 that we typically award per topic, we usually will give one phase two award to one lucky winner of the phase one awardees. And then that phase two award then is taking their feasibility study, expanding upon it, and then developing a full-fledged prototype. So we don't give all of the funding at once, I guess is the general idea. We go through this like gated system to kind of first get a survey of solutions before we invest a little further in our funding to give you funding to actually develop something tangible. Only those companies that were awarded phase one have the ability to go to phase two. Now, both phases 1 and 2 are actually funded by SBIR and STTR. It's phase 3 that's kind of like what I call the finish line or the success story, where it's actually funded by the originating program of record. So as an example, we have under NAVWAR a program office, PNW 130. Underneath that program office is a program called Computer Network Defense, which, as the name suggests, helps with our more defensive capabilities on a computer network side. So if PNW 130 and the Computer Network Defense Program submitted a topic, we are expecting that that program will actually fund your phase 3 contract vehicle. Phase 3 is that sole source contract that every small business strives for, that takes what we've invested with the SBIR program and creates like a full, like a sort of the testing, the maintenance, and the sort of the transition of that specific initiative. The beauty about phase 3 is that it can be any type of contract. It can be any type of, or any, I would say, color of funding. If you're familiar with some of our appropriation types, it doesn't have to be a specific pot of funding. And there's so many flexibilities that come with it. Another thing to note about a phase 3 contract is that it can be awarded anytime after a phase 1. So if you as a small business, you've awarded a phase 1 award, the government program doesn't necessarily have to go through phase 2 to get to a phase 3. They can always pick it up afterwards. We've had those rare circumstances. One of our program offices actually did it. We had a phase 1 that was awarded by a different agency, which I'll kind of get into a little bit of the secret sauce that comes with the program. But a company was awarded a phase 1 through NAVC. We picked it up at NAVWAR and created a phase 3 contract based off of it. I think the program office had won the lottery and wanted to use their money for the particular contract instead of using SBIR funds. But in the end, it did pan out. So that's kind of the overview of what the phase structure is. Okay, so I kind of talked about the more traditional sense in the past slide, where we go through this notion of creating a topic and go through phase 1, 2, and 3. But there are some, quote, shortcuts that we have to the program itself. And I'll talk about those in the next 2 slides. But it doesn't necessarily always have to start with a topic. And so that being said, one of the first sort of non-traditional approaches that we have to the program is something called Direct to Phase 2. These are special kinds of topics that we release. And I would say for NAVWAR, we've released a total of 2 topics in the past. So it's relatively new for us. But anytime we, Direct to Phase 2 basically is the ability for us to still create a brand new topic, but if you are a company trying to submit in response to that topic, you had to already had completed phase 1 type work before. So if, for example, we're asking for a brand new cryptographic scheme, for example, and I'm just throwing it out there because I'm down to heart a cryptographer. If you've already done some type of work like that in the past, that's a perfect applicability to responding to a Direct to Phase 2. We won't accept any proposals, or you wouldn't be eligible to compete for a Direct to Phase 2 if you've never done that type of work before. So there's this almost inherent requirement or prerequisite, if you will, to have already some type of work done before you've actually submitted a proposal in response to one of these topics. Nonetheless, the reason why we actually go through the Direct to Phase 2 is really to chop off at least a year in the life cycle of SBIR, because as you kind of saw on the last slide, from when a topic is posted to when you probably get an award is roughly about a year. So it just kind of depends on whether or not how fast or accelerated we would want a solution to be created. Okay, and the second sort of injection point, or the non-traditional way of participating in SBIR, is if you've already participated in it before. So one of the beauties about the program is that we can always adopt a prior SBIR SCTR award. I would say that of the entire NAVWAR portfolio, this probably, I would say, takes about 40 to 60% of our portfolio. We use this opportunity. So we all know that there probably is no new ideas, right? And so probably a need that we at NAVWAR are looking for is probably already addressed by a different agency or a different service. Because of this ability for us to adopt a prior award, we can always take a counterpart in the Navy that has already developed the award itself, or even outside of it. We've done something with Department of Energy. We've taken or adopted some of their prior work. We've adopted from, I believe NASA was another one that we've adopted for, but we can create a phase 2 award based on any prior phase 1 or phase 2. So you as a small business, if you've already gone through this process and you've done a phase 1 or a phase 2 award, I would say that anytime you come to talk to either myself or anybody within NAVWAR and want to do business with us, by all means, please showcase some of your prior SBIR awards to us, because it allows us to capitalize on that rather than creating a brand new topic and going through this normal cycle. So that's a pretty nice shortcut, if you will, and goes back to my original incentive about any follow-on awards can be sole source. One thing to do keep in mind is that a company can only receive 2 phase 2s per topic. And I apologize, I need to strip this out because I learned this just recently, that it isn't, no, actually, never mind. I'm sorry. I just had a little bit of a brain situation. Every company can only receive 2 phase 2s per topic if the topic was posted in FY13 or after. I would say as a small business, don't necessarily worry about this limit, because we as a program manager will tell you whether or not you've exceeded the limit. But there is just a small limitation for those that have participated in the program as to how many awards you can receive per topic. Okay, I'm close to the end. Data rights. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. Companies do hold specific data rights when you've received an SBIR SCTR award. If I could sum it up, and if you're familiar with some of our limited, restricted rights or unlimited rights that we have at the government, any data that you produce, any technical data, the government has limited rights with respect to it. Any computer software that you developed, we have restricted rights associated with it. And essentially, the best way that I could describe it is that from 20 years of your first SBIR award associated with the topic, we basically can only use the products, but we can't share it outside of the government itself. So we can't share it, for example, with any contractors or any of our large primes. That is something that you as a small business to have that protection in there. And it's something also that we cannot negotiate you out of that either. So you are not coerced in any way to forfeit your data rights at all. That is technically illegal. So do kind of keep that in mind. But there's so much more to this. I actually have a dedicated brief for data rights, which, for the interest of time, the general, sum from this is that, you do hold specific rights to your products that you developed underneath this program. And I think this is my very last slide, which is just some strategies that if you're a small business, to kind of keep in mind. The first thing is to help inspire us to create new SBIR ICGR topics. We can't create a topic for a small business particularly. A lot of companies come to us and say, well, we have this amazing product. It's not out there yet. You've never created a topic. Can we help you write a topic? And I always say no, because then there's this expectation that we would give you the award, and that's not fair to any other company. However, you're more than welcome to have those open conversations with the government personnel that do create topics, and maybe that'll help inspire us to create them. We just can't tell you if we're going to submit one or not. I did talk about this a little bit earlier, which is the second bullet. If you've been awarded an SBIR ICGR award, by all means, save that as part of your portfolio and save that for whenever you do like a roadshow or you talk to one of our government representatives. It's a great tactic for us to capitalize on that work and do a sole source contract with you, should that be an interest item to us. I understand that NAVWAR is so large. We do have a public facing website, which you can get a little bit more information about what we do and what we're responsible for. And I apologize, I think this link that I have in here is not available at the moment. We had basically something we called the NAVWAR list, which was a great resource we gave to outreach events to give a really in-depth about every single program that participates in SBIR and what they do, so that companies could cross-reference that and see if what they're developing is in line with what the interests are. I'm going to I have a note to myself sometime this month to actually touch base and see if we can get a distro A, because I think it got a little bit more restrictive in its distribution. But it's a great resource that's out there. Nonetheless, we do have a public facing website that does give you an idea of what our command is responsible for. Do take some moments to kind of take a look at that. And that might be just a helpful little first pass or a first filter for you if you are a small business and want to do business with NAVWAR but don't know where to start. And then last but not least, I would say don't wait till the last minute if you've never participated in SBIR and SCTR to kind of get the required registrations. System for award management is just one of those where you kind of want to have an account ready to go. And that would probably save you just some time. So if you've never participated in SBIR before, take some moments to kind of take a look and get up to speed and get your registrations in order so that it's not a big rush when it comes to submitting a proposal. That being said, this is my last slide. So I will leave it for any questions.
Hi, if anybody has any questions, you can unmute yourself. Feel free to ask. I actually have a question.
Sure.
So, the direct to phase 2 programs, are those differentiated, or how do you access those?
Yeah, so exactly. So every single, the 3 times a year topic solicitations that we post, there will be a note before the topic title that will say direct to phase 2. And it will actually specifically say this is a direct to phase 2 topic. So it's the easy flag for folks to understand. And we actually give, if we do have a direct to phase 2 topic, we really indicate you must perform or you must have already some phase 1 type of work already completed in there.
And is the reach back similar?
Actually, reach back is something where we don't have a rolling announcement. It's just opportunity that we as the government have internal to NAVWAR to just pick up a prior phase 1 or phase 2 award. So it's not a specific announcement. It's just an opportunity that exists for small businesses should you have an existing SBIR phase 1 or phase 2 award that we can pick up.
So when you say pick up, sorry, what does that mean?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So, I guess maybe it's easy to kind of come up with an example. So, if you're a small business, you've already done a phase 1 or phase 2 award, and you, for example, touched base with one of our government POCs. The government POC usually will come to me and say, hey, I'm interested in capitalizing on this prior SBIR phase 1, phase 2 award. Can we pick it up for another phase 2? And we'll go through like a 30-day request for proposal, submit that to the small business.
Oh, I see.
So it's almost like it's not associated with an announcement. It's just an opportunity that exists throughout the year, given to our internal rights.
Okay, nice. I think Steve has a question.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Shadi, and thank you, Cindy. This is Steve Brennan from Premier Solutions. We've been active in the program, and I've met you before, Shadi. So, reading the new topics that are out from the Navy, and NAVWAR's not. That doesn't look like they have topics this round, but there's this new thing. It's digital engineering in all capitals, and there's not a whole lot of information on what makes something digital engineering, what their program is about. And I was just wondering if you had any insight from your Navy program manager,
NAVWAR is actually, we didn't participate in the digital engineering side. I can say, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, from our roundtables that we have monthly with some of our program manager counterparts, it was an opportunity for us to do a broad set of topics and focus areas. Okay. And make awards. Typically, whenever you see our traditional announcements, there are very specific topics that we make. I think digital engineering was a move where it was so broad, as you mentioned, to where we were trying to open the aperture for submissions to come into us. So I think that's as best of an answer I could probably provide on that, particularly given our non-involvement at the moment. Okay.
And then my other question is, we've been very successful in the SBIR program. We've gotten to phase 3,
right.
With funding from NAVSUP, with PAC Fleet. But the biggest problem that we face, and I've even talked to Neil about this, is authorizations to operate. Cybersecurity and those types of issues. And when you get down to it, the keys are held by NIWC and NAVWAR, often in that realm. Is there anything that the program office, the SBIR program office, can do to help us just get traction and expedite that process? It really is one of the biggest obstacles to business success. I'm just wondering, is there any way you can help?
Yeah, at least on the NAVWAR side, I think what you've expressed is kind of it's the not unusual challenge that it comes down to every program office's transition planning. And so if you have a dedicated technical point of contact, or someone that's overseeing the effort that you're doing, they're supposed to have those in line for you. I would say reach out to your SBIR PMs. At least from my side, I want to make sure that those ATOs or those authorizations do come into effect. At least for NAVWAR side, we do quarterly program reviews with all of our SBIR awards to make sure that those specific things do happen. I can't say that's the same across all the other syscoms like NAVSUP, but at least for NAVWAR, you have me on your side if should that ever happen, I guess I should say.
Well, that's good to know, and thanks for making time for talking to us out here in Hawaii. Appreciate it.
Yep.
And I think we have another question from Jim Carson. Hey Jim, do you have questions? I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I had double muted myself. I wondered if we could talk about slide 10 for a minute, and especially that first period between the pre-release and the opening of the award. I appreciated your comments about the importance of reaching out to the TPOCs and developing a real sense for what they were doing, what they were pursuing with that topic, because they tend to be, you know, relatively short, a page and a half, and it's hard to get everything in there. What I have found, though, is that a lot of TPOCs don't really appreciate the difference between that first 30-day period and the second 30-day period. And I wondered if there was anything your office was doing to train the TPOCs, for lack of a better word, that those more in-depth discussions are both appropriate and valuable during that first 30-day window.
Absolutely. I guess the best way I could say is that we, throughout the process of when an announcement is posted, we touch base with our topic authors. We tell them about their availability and that they should have availability during those periods of time to answer questions. We sort of like taking it even further, I always recommend our technical points of, or I guess the topic authors, to have as much email traction as possible, just because, especially during this environment right now, we're in teleworking situations, so they might not be available by phone. But I guess the best way to say is we do, at least within NAVWAR, and what I do is to educate our topic authors to ensure that they have the time for you as a small business if you have any questions during the 30-day period and then following.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, did you have another question? No.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know how to work Zoom very well. Too many platforms. My hand is always raised.
Got it. I was going to ask too also, is it okay to call the topic managers at any time outside of these 30 days as well?
Yeah, I think you're welcome to, as long as it's outside of the scope of the topic, especially where companies, I think, would like to get more information about like their evaluation or their proposal. We can't usually do that outside of that. But yeah, if you saw a topic that's out there that's, you know, related to something that you're doing, but not within the scope of the topic, you're more than welcome, I think, to contact them.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have any questions?
Hey, Shadi, this is Neil again. Real quick one. Could you give us some examples of some of the more recent broad agency announcements that you're kind of familiar with? Maybe just a high-level overview on the type of requests we've had in the past.
In terms of like types of topics, I would say.
Yeah, just so they get a gauge.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Okay, because I'm a software engineer at heart, so I'm going to be butchering some of the other program offices. So I would say, if you're familiar with our structure or what NAVWAR does, we do a lot, anything within related to the cyber domain. One of the offices that we do that really participates in the program is an office called PW 170, which handles more of the communication side. So anything dealing with our antennas and that sort of capabilities themselves. That's one of the offices that really abuses in the right way the program itself. We are starting to increase, I think, our cybersecurity program office. We understand that's a very, very big, hot and heavy subject area. So we're trying to boost that as well. I would say, Neil, it's a little bit odd because we don't really have a predictive, way of which topics get inserted into our announcements. It just depends. So I usually do a call to all of our program offices, and whichever ones respond, we take a look at what their capability gaps are. But it's not like every office has a topic that's being submitted. So the more recent one is PW 170. If you go to NavySBIR.com, it does have kind of like what our recent announcements have been. So I would kind of do that rather than taking my horrible paraphrasing of it in or layman's terms behind it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Insult our topic authors.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were a cryptographer too. That's
I am,
interesting.
yes.
Yeah.
I live and breathe cryptography, but yes, there are no topics there out there to pique my interest yet. Yes. So,
Thank you.
mhm.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for any of us? Okay, I think if nobody else has any questions, we'll wrap it up. Steve or Neil, did you want to say anything else?
Oh no, I just want to thank Shadi very much. It was very informative, and I learned a lot personally. I wasn't familiar as much with the program, and I think this is a great opportunity for not just the Hawaii TechBridge, but the state of Hawaii and our great small businesses here. So hopefully, this is another opportunity for our businesses to play in the DoD arena. And thank you, Shadi, once again for a great presentation.
Yes, I'll echo that. Thank you, Shadi and Cindy, for teeing this up. Important and meaningful topic.
Great. I'm gonna stop our recording.